My life has been deeply affected by the joy of sport, and I see a similar passion in the cultures around the world. Striving to go further and faster, to get better and stronger, is fundamental to the human journey. The program you're about to see showcases 6 inspiring personal journeys, people whose accomplishments have motivated and enabled positive change. Their work brings hope to the world in the face of adversity, fostering love and forgiveness through the power of sport and embodied spiritual practice. One of the creators of the Homeless World Cup, Mel Young, is a lifelong advocate for homeless people around the world. For over a decade, the Homeless World Cup has made real change in the lives and communities of its participants and restored hope on an international scale.
The Homeless World Cup is an annual event which involves homeless people from around the world. And what happens is during the year, in the countries that are participating, homeless people are playing football and then are selected to represent their country. And then once a year we usually have between 50 and 60 teams participate for the Homeless World Cup.
The philosophy of the tournament for us really is about simply using football as a method to create change. So it's a real football tournament, and if you get people to participate in it, then it brings them together as a team. So the whole idea was it will change their lives. After the first event, we did some research on it, and we found 80% were changing their lives, getting houses and jobs and so on. And I didn't believe it. I said these statistics are wrong, because I worked with homeless people for a long time, and getting them back into society and move on is really hard. I think 4 times we checked them until we said, oh my goodness, we're onto something here. It's about the sport, the competitive nature of it, but actually, it's the understanding about losing. It's about the players, and the players make it, and it's just beautiful.
Marla Runyon has been legally blind since the age of 9. Through the years, she overcame her visual impairment to become a world-class runner and Olympic competitor. Her personal triumphs have led her to the Fetzer Institute and Camp Abilities, a program designed to teach movement and sport to visually impaired children.
Camp Abilities was started in 1996 by a woman named Dr. Lauren Lieberman. And so what Lauren did is she saw this gap. Here are all these kids with vision impairment, and here's all these incredible sports. But we got to figure out a bridge. We've got to bring them together, or they're not going to be able to have this experience. Well, Camp Abilities was this amazing example of love and forgiveness, allowing and empowering these children to have sport in their life.
And as one foot comes off the ground, the other one's pushing off.
What I'm really looking forward to is interviewing these kids. I want to interview even 8-year-old kids, and I want to ask them questions about their own perception of their blindness. And I want to know, I want to learn, how has this changed your life? One of the things we want to change is we want to change people's perceptions and expectations of children and adults who are blind or visually impaired. We need to see higher expectations and opportunity. If you don't think a child can do something, you're not going to give them the opportunity to even try. There is a technique to teaching a child who can't see how to run. There is a technique to teaching a child who can't see how to swim, because they can't see other people doing those things. And basically what sports does is it teaches you can do something you didn't know you could do. And then when you have that experience, you feel empowered. Like, man, I did that. That's awesome.
1, 2, 3, go!
That's what Camp Abilities does. It creates that social connection. It creates that opportunity and that empowerment for kids. With that, there comes a lot of forgiveness, forgiving the fact that I am blind, and parents forgiving this circumstance that happened to their child without their control, and they start to realize, that's okay, look at what my child can do.
One of the all-time greatest Olympians came from very humble beginnings. Jackie Joyner-Kersee never forgot where she came from. She has created a foundation in her hometown of East St. Louis, Illinois, to help the people in the community learn personal and team-oriented life skills.
The reason I started the Jackie Joyner Tracy Foundation was because when I grew up in East St. Louis, I was exposed to a community center. And at that community center, I came in contact with volunteers. And when I competed in track and field, my parents couldn't afford for me to go to the meets. The coaches made sure that if I was hungry, I was fed. If I didn't have the right clothing, they provided the clothing for me. That community center that I was exposed to closed down, and I started wondering, where do the kids go? The most important thing for me is to continue to see young people come through those doors and go on and graduate, and then they come back and also be role models and mentors. We use athletics as a hook, and we really try to expose our young people about character building, life skills, teaching them things that are tangible in the sense that they can use and apply to their everyday living. So when it comes to love and forgiveness, it's getting our kids to interact with one another, being able to play games that you don't see young people playing anymore. I find that young people who don't do those kind of interaction games, as they get older, they don't even know how to resolve conflicts. A lot of times I don't see the work that I do because I live it. And sometimes you think it's not important, but in the eyes of others it's important. And here was a way for me to continue to reach out and touch so many other young people, or just people in general, I wouldn't have the ability to do.
How can applying the principles of Aikido inspire love and forgiveness in our everyday lives? Wendy Palmer, a black belt instructor, created the Leadership Embodiment program to help people around the world do just that. In South Africa, Wendy's work has helped break down barriers and cope with interpersonal tensions.
I love South Africa, and I've always wanted to be helpful there. And seeing the incredible dichotomy of the people who live in these shacks and then people who live in really nice houses, I thought, oh, if we could make a contribution, bringing these practices of how to be centered under pressure, and then we also have this whole element of the inclusiveness, but advocating how to advocate without being aggressive or collapsing.
And you can see I'm not forcing, I'm not efforting. That's what I want you to feel.
Which is another part of Aikido too, how to move in, how to be direct without being aggressive. So I've brought that into how to speak, how to take action as a way to be powerful without being aggressive. For the people in South Africa, they have a natural sense of inclusiveness. What was more difficult for them is to speak up, to take a stand for themselves. Again, somewhat because of their history. It was inspiring to offer them these tools so that they could begin to learn how to speak up on behalf of better education, better health care, how to be able to bring themselves forward a little bit more. The more simple someone's education in life is, the more direct they are about love and forgiveness.
You know, where there is no forgiveness, there is no future.
Forgiveness is a must.
People recognizing that they can live and relate together. We're going back and we want to invite people to do some coaching with each other to spread it further so that they can start to interact together outside of just what they do in work, that they can actually hopefully start to make friends with each other.
Richard Lapchick is a human rights activist and a pioneer for racial equality. He believes that sport can be an effective instrument of positive social change.
My father taught me when I was a young boy that a leader is somebody who stands up for justice and doesn't block its path. I understood that perhaps that was going to be my mission.
Richard Lapchick's a political science professor at Virginia Wesleyan College and the leader of a group that had planned to protest South Africa's apartheid policy at the upcoming Davis Cup match. Last night, after returning from Vanderbilt University, where the match will be held, Lapchick was beaten and cut by two masked men.
I was hospitalized for several days, and a lot of people were very angry that this had happened to me and thought that I was going to be angry. But for me, what it showed was that if people thought that whatever I was doing was worth stopping, that I must have been doing something that was important. I think when you see athletes and coaches and teams active in the community, out in the community, doing things that are uniting the community, Those are the most powerful ways that we can bring about change. I think when I first started writing the Racial and Gender Report Card in the late 1980s, all of the commissioners thought I was a pain in the neck. Now all of the commissioners say that they use that as a vehicle to talk to their teams to say this is where we can improve. This is a baseline published annually that the commissioners and league offices use as a way to affect change at the team level. The Institute for Diversity and Ethics in Sport, or as it's commonly called, TIDES, are to publish 24 research studies every year highlighting the racial and gender hiring practices in professional sport, graduation rates among the so-called revenue sports at the college level. Our goal is to increase those graduation rates when we publish schools that are doing well, to reward them when they're not doing well. All of our programs are built on the capacity of athletes to be role models, but we train them to deliver socially significant messages in the areas of diversity, in the areas of men's violence against women, and the conflict resolution. As an activist in the area of sport and society, you have to be an optimist. You wouldn't be an activist if you didn't think social change was going to come about. Is it going to happen right away? I worked in the anti-apartheid movement for 25 years before I was there that day in the audience when Nelson Mandela was inaugurated. There I was watching this man who had been a prisoner for 27 years become the president of what had been the most racist system of government in the history of the second half of the 20th century.
On 9/11, many heroes emerged. One of them was a young man named Wells Crowther, whose courage and selfless love is symbolized by the signature red bandana given to him by his father when he was a child.
A symbol of absolutely the most pure form of compassion and love. No greater love hath one than to lay down his life for his fellow man. It's all right here in this red bandana for me. He loved having that red bandana, and he always had it with him. He always had it with him.
In sports, Wells was a leader, always wearing number 19.
Wells was the first guy to pat you on the back if you didn't have a good game, and always a smile.
After college, Wells moved to New York City to be an equities trader. His office was on the 104th floor in the South Tower of the World Trade Center. At 8:46 a.m. on September 11th, American Airlines Flight 11 flew into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Wells called and left a message for his mother.
Mom, this is Wells. I want you to know that I'm okay.
In the 78th floor sky lobby of the South Tower, approximately 200 people were waiting to evacuate by the elevators.
And next thing you know, it just exploded. We really can't move because we don't know what happened. Then all of a sudden, we saw a young man come out of nowhere. You heard this man's voice say, "I found the stairs. Follow me. Only help the one that you can help." It's the way he said it. And we just got up, we followed.
The man was Wells Crowther. He guided Young and others to Stairway A, the only functional stairway left. He led them down to the 61st floor, where they met firefighters who escorted them to the working elevators of the 40th floor. After leading the group down, he turned and headed back up the stairs.
He said, "I'm going back up," because he knows there's a lot of people up there on the 78th floor.
Wells climbed 17 floors, returning again to the burning sky lobby. There he helped other survivors. At 9:59 a.m., the South Tower collapsed. The details of Wells' death remained a mystery. That May, the New York Times published an account from survivors inside the South Tower. One detail struck the Crowthers immediately.
Mysterious man wearing a red kerchief was calling out, basically setting up a triage. The minute I saw the reference to the red kerchief, I went, "Oh my God, Wells, I found you."
According to accounts from survivors, Wells helped to save as many as 12 people. No one would criticize Wells if he evacuated the burning towers, but he sacrificed his life to help others. No one would criticize the Crowthers if they focused on retribution for the loss of their son. Instead, they have established a foundation in Wells' honor, creating a curriculum that uses Wells' story to teach kids about love and forgiveness in action. As these incredible stories have shown, beyond the glory of trophies and titles, sport levels the playing field. Creating community where there was once conflict, dissolving social, generational, cultural, and spiritual divides, providing a source of strength and joy. And with that, sports gives each of us, and all of us, the transformative potential to foster love and forgiveness in the world, in our nation, in our community, and in ourselves.